Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into something that often flies right under the radar, the hidden communication struggles that many autistic children face. We're going to uncover why challenges that can seem kind of subtle on the surface, well, they can actually have a massive impact on a child's life.
So, let's just start with this question. What if a child's biggest struggles weren't the obvious ones, but were actually hidden in plain sight? Imagine a kid with a great vocabulary who can speak really clearly, but still struggles deeply to connect with the world around them. That's the paradox we're digging into today.
So the term for this is subtle language difficulties. And look, this isn't about being able to form words. It's about all that higher level stuff. You know, the back and forth of a good chat, getting the timing of a joke, or just trying to follow a bunch of instructions at once. These are the kinds of challenges you often see in autistic kids who don't have an intellectual disability, which honestly is probably why they get missed so often.
For a long time, these kinds of difficulties have been seriously underestimated. But a recent study decided to get to the heart of it all by listening to the real experts, the people who see it all, every single day, the parents. And their experiences, their insights, are really the foundation for everything we're about to talk about.
Okay, so first up, let's go beyond the obvious. We're going to peel back the layers here and see what's really happening underneath what looks like a perfectly tapeable surface.
And this right here is the core of the whole thing. On the surface, you might have a child who seems like a great talker. No problem at all. But the reality underneath is this constant struggle with the rhythm, the flow of a conversation, and the sheer mental effort it takes to process complicated instructions. It's the difference between knowing all the words and knowing how to use them in that fluid, back-and-forth dance of just talking to someone.
And, this creates this massive ripple effect. These subtle issues, they don't just stay in one place. They spread out, touching pretty much every part of a child's life.
So here's what the research found, and it's huge. Parents weren't just talking about small, minor annoyances. Nope, they were reporting significant universal challenges across 3 really critical areas of their child's development. And I mean the impact was felt everywhere. Making friends, learning to be independent, doing well in school, it didn't matter. For every single one of these areas, parents described the challenges as both significant and universal. In fact, not a single parent in the study felt their child was exempt from these major hurdles.
So let's break that down. We'll start with the first big one, making and keeping friends. I mean, this is such a basic fundamental part of being a kid, right? And it's where these communication issues can be just so painfully obvious.
A parent might see their kid overtalk about, say, their favorite video game, or they might interrupt a lot. And it's not because they're trying to be rude. It's because they're missing those subtle social signals that tell the rest of us when to pause. But the tragic thing is, other kids can see that as being self-centered, or like they're just uninterested in anyone else, and that pushes potential friends away.
All right, the second major area of impact is developing independence. And this is that really crucial process of learning how to get by in the world on your own. It's a huge goal for any parent and any kid. This is where you can really see how a language issue becomes a real-world problem. A simple request like, hey, can you go upstairs, grab your book, and then put your shoes by the door? That can feel like a total flood of information, making it almost impossible to actually get the task done. And it also might sit harder to tell a story or explain what you need. The basic skills for advocating for yourself.
And of course, these challenges don't just stay at home. They follow them right into the third impact area, succeeding in school. A classroom is this super complex web of social rules and instructions, which can make it a really tough environment to navigate.
And again, what parents saw was just so revealing. In a chaotic group project or a busy classroom, the pressure to process everything all at once can just be too much. And the response isn't defiance, it's just pure self-preservation. A child might just clam up or completely shut down. And that's a coping strategy that unfortunately also closes the door on some really important chances to learn.
But this isn't just a story about struggle. It's also one about incredible resilience. And that brings us to the strategies from the front lines, the ones developed by the people who know best, the parents themselves.
And honestly, their ingenuity is just remarkable. To take the pressure off, parents came up with these amazing strategies. They'd actually prepare conversation topics ahead of time, almost like a little script, or they'd switch to writing things down, which is way less immediate and stressful. And they changed the setting, using something structured like a board game to create a safe, low-key space for talking.
But here's the really crucial part. These solutions weren't just clever ideas. They were born out of absolute necessity. The study found that parents were coming up with all of this on their own because they had little to no specialist support for these specific, real-world problems.
So that big gap in support, that leads us to our final section. how do we build a better bridge? If parents are being forced to basically invent solutions from scratch, what do we need to do to build a formal, effective support system? The difference between what's happening now and what's being proposed is, well, it's stark. On one side, you have this reality where parents feel they have almost no specialist help. On the other, you have a clear solution. Dedicated therapy that doesn't just focus on abstract language skills, but on the real-world functional stuff parents are so worried about: making friends, becoming independent, and just thriving.
So, based on all this, the study lays out some really clear recommendations. First off, we just need more services for this group, period. Second, the focus has to be on those practical, functional life skills. Third, it's so important to collaborate with mental health services because communication struggles and anxiety often go hand in hand. And finally, we have to collect information from both parents and children. Their perspectives are both absolutely vital pieces of the puzzle.
So as we wrap this up, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. We absolutely cannot afford to underestimate things just because we call them subtle. These challenges, the ones hidden just beneath the surface, have profound, real, and long-term consequences on a person's ability to connect, to grow, and to find their place in the world.
The study gave a powerful voice to parents, and it leaves us with one last, really important question to think about. Who else do we need to start listening to more carefully? The children themselves? Teachers? How can we all become better listeners to finally start building that bridge and closing these gaps in understanding?